Thank you so much, Stephen Mbide. Currently in Bugolobi, looking at the traffic. One thing that took my attention, though, Mbide, while you're on ground, is that some people walking without masks. COVID is real and COVID kills. Make sure your mask is well, placed on your mandibles and your nostrils to avoid any entry of the virus. And COVID is, by the way, very lethal. Now, today, there has been a recess in cases of COVID-19 and the positive rate, or vibe, if I should call it, in our country, that is down to under 6% of the tested cases. However, the SOPs to prevent these are being lifted. Some of those are the gathering places who are under closures. The likes of bars, where you reside, some bars operational, but they're doing it illegally. Churches are protesting the continued closure. Now, to speak to us about this and more, we have Mr. Anderson Burora Hubbard, the Deputy RCC Nakawa Division, charged with overseeing the implementation of SOPs in his area where I actually reside, and Simon Senyonga, a lawyer who is in court over the closure of churches. I have one in court about the same case, and Anderson, who has to impose this that they happen. Well, I'll start off this. Gentlemen, a very good morning. It's absurd that we are all men on set, but this does not mean gender inequality. We believe in the so-said values and virtues. Senyonga, to start with, how is the court process going?
I think first of all, we've just done the filing. You know that we are filed in majorly two courts, the High Court of Uganda and the East African Court of Justice. So we've gone to the High Court to seek for both declarations and orders. I'm saying that, number one, the declaration of the presidential directives on the closure of churches are disproportionate and unfair and illegal. So we want the court to order.
Illegal? You've said illegal?
Yes, they are illegal. Okay. And we're saying that they should, the court should declare that that is, number one, disproportionate, discriminates the places of worship, not only churches, all places of worship. And we are saying that there should be a stop to this kind of, irrational behavior.
Okay. And so did you consider that all this is happening in the time of absence of normalcy, that we're dealing with a pandemic?
You see, the absence of normalcy does not take away the fundamental respect of the Constitution and the rule of law. That's something very, very important that many people need to understand. So
people should die because the rule of law says they should convene and pray?
No, that's a skewed narrative. It's really the dominant narrative that most of the media stations are pushing, sadly. And they tend to make us think that the fight for the constitutional rights equates to the death of many Ugandans. It doesn't, actually.
Yes.
Because you see, I could as well tell you, why do you work? You get. So the thing is, it's not about people dying. You see, look here. On the 30th of July, the president comes and addresses the nation. What does he tell us? Three key things. You read page 24 of his speech. He says, number one, places of worship have been closed. All right? Actually, he says they are under review as if they had been opened. Secondly, he says that these places of worship, they're going to be reviewed after 60 days.
Yes.
Can you imagine that all other places are going to be reviewed after 30 days, 42 days? Only places of worship. And actually, he uses the language that these are super spreaders. Then, the final thing he talks about, that you can use online worship, but with conditions. What are these conditions? You must only be 10 leaders. Now, I'm at NTV today. NTV hosts a very big party, I think over the weekend or something, a show.
The dance party.
The dance party, and many other stations with very many people. Why is it that this limitation is only on the churches? That's what we are questioning, all right?
Okay.
And then, number two, read into the language of the president that he used when he was saying his speech. From the very word go, he was extremely antagonistic. He says, number one, the fight of COVID has been delayed because of false prophets. Now, the language that he uses has religious connotations.
Of course
it doesn't limit it to only Christians, but across the board. And we are saying that this language does not show political goodwill in terms of execution of this particular mandate.
So,
why didn't he say false science?
So, Senyonga, you believe the arrest of the late Yiga, when he said the COVID was a hoax, it wasn't there. Even the times when it came through, the president didn't about it. I'm sure by now you know of a place in Kayunga where 55 residents died because their local leaders in churches told them, dogo, it is not a disease. So you believe the president speaks from a point of lack of information? Is he
I
not
don't
informed?
think I don't think it speaks from the place of lack of information. I think it speaks from the place of misadvice. You see, when we went to court, we not only go to sue the Attorney General as representative of government. We went to court actually to sue Dr. Acheng and the permanent secretary. And we are saying that these are the
For ill advising.
yes, misadvising. You see, under the Public Service Act, Section 10, which creates their office, and Section 14,
Yes.
they are supposed to act under goodwill and with fairness in terms of advising. So Dr. Twine advises Dr. Cheng, who then in turn advises the president. And we are saying that because of their misadvice, because look here, all the speeches, 18th of June, 2020,
My
30th of
scientists have
July.
advised.
My scientists, my epidemiologists. I think the other person, I don't know why we left them out, was Dr. Musenero, who is the senior presidential advisor on epidemics. And we are saying that, look here, under the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which is a new law of 2019, it is saying that you can actually, there is personal liability. You no
As an
longer-
individual, yes.
as an
true.
individual, I can no
Yes.
longer, I don't need to go to Attorney General only.
Yes.
So I can sue Dr. Trina, I can sue Dr. Cheng for actually ill-advising
The
the president. And because of that ill-advice, the places of worship have suffered subsequently by telling us to be closed. There is no rationale actually for
You,
60.
you look at this, it's entirely political. Do you feel that the religious dominions are being targeted by the state for one or two reasons?
I think there has been a concerted effort over the years, and you know we have been at this
Right there.
2017.
I'll pick you from the word over the years. Let me come to my brother here, Anderson Burora. The beauty about it is that, Anderson, you grew in the church. You know the dynamics before you became a political leader where you are today. How is the implementation of the COVID-19 SOPs going on where you run?
It is so absurd that we are discussing a pandemic that claims lives without segregations in law interpretations. And I think people like Senyonga are doing a disservice to the church.
How?
They are not doing any service to it. Because it is, since it is now legal litigation, this thing can go on and takes years. Since
True.
it is a case in court, the president can easily say, no, I am not discussing anything in court.
Where?
We cannot go into the discussion of how to
Whatever
open
is in the
churches
court.
until this case is disposed. And this can take so many years. If there are pastors who are listening or even viewing this, they should run so fast and save themselves from people like Senyonga who are doing them a disservice. A pandemic is not a matter of joke. We had all our constitutional rights suspended. We do not gather. We have our customs, our cultural rights suspended. I am sure, Chamagero, there are so many weddings of your colleagues
I have not attended.
that you've not attended. There are so many relatives you've not buried. And it is a custom, it is a culture.
When you
I
talk
don't
about-
know the last time I shook hands with my friends.
When you talk about culture, in the Bible, which he believes in, and even those who believe in the Quran, there is a verse that says, "And so you shall meet and fellowship as brothers
Yes,
and
yes.
sisters." In
Yes,
that context,
that's what
with
I was,
regards to the
that's what I
conversation.
was coming to. So pandemics are even in the Bible. Jesus healed so many people with leprosy who were so isolated.
Which is the pandemic today.
Which is a pandemic today, isolation.
I
But
agree.
when such issues happen in a society, it warrants that some people disperse, go away from others. And in the sense that when you go away from others, you don't risk spreading, but
disease.
you help the rest who are not who have not contracted the disease to stay safe and alive. So when we are doing, we are reviewing COVID effects, they are economic, they are spiritual, they are traditional, they are social, they are political. So if we choose to discuss each of these, to me, before I even advocate for the opening of churches, I would be first to go to the opening of schools. You have children, I don't know if in the Bible, if I missed going to church in a year, if that takes me to hell. But I am very sure if a child doesn't go to school for a year, he or she has missed a year in his or her career. That year is wasted. In this case, we are going into 2 years. You have seen the performance of children deteriorate because they have not gotten adequate space and time to attend to their academics.
So, Anderson, do you want to allude that the presence of the pandemic poses the constitution and the rule of law of what we are all, you know, paying allegiance to?
Pandemics world over suspend constitutions.
Okay.
They do. It is now the Public Health Act is stronger than the Constitution.
Okay.
And that is for a fact. The Public Health Act, as we speak now, can say that Parliament will not sit.
And it will be respected.
And it will be respected. Why? Because it is a life threat. It is not a rights threat, no. It is a life threat. Now, rights are respected where there is adequate
freedom
space.
Of worship.
Yes. All those rights are respected where there is enough space for them to be executed. If there is no space, even constitutions, in terms of emergencies, constitutions, they cannot back at anyone.
They are suspended.
They are suspended until you return to normalcy. So if we are looking at COVID in terms of constitutional interpretations, civil rights, human rights, I think we are doing ourselves a disservice, and actually we are undoing whatever we have done, because this is more of an incitement. It just incites people to have another thinking that actually COVID and gathering and meeting, they can coexist, which is not true until certain parameters have been placed in, put in place. Okay. So before we reach that level, whereby we have specific parameters that help us to congregate, that help us to meet. Because what is the essence of congregation?
To fellowship.
If I will not pray with you, okay, I have come to church, but I will not be able to pray with you. I have come to church, I will not be able to sit with you and tell you my issue. Because we meet in churches for specific reasons. One, to pray together, to fellowship. To fellowship.
And that's what the Bible says.
Yes, and that's what the Bible says. But even when you go to the church, you won't be able to fellowship.
Because
Why?
of the fear of
yes,
no.
I have to be a distance away from you. That is one. Two, there is no way I am going to talk to Chamagero when everyone is listening to me.
There
because I have to shout.
Yes.
I have to shout because Chamagero is my fellow person that I want to be able to talk to the pastor and he hears me in silence. I have to shout. So even when I go to church, I will not be able to fellowship. I will be there. I will be.
You'll pretend, but you won't be
no,
open enough
I won't.
to flourish.
I can't flourish. I can't pray. Even when I go to church, I will have to be as if I am
a psycho.
Yeah. So
is this place sanitized? No. Now that brings me, Senyonga, to this. Churches have been, advocating for the opening of the places of worship, and I really believe them in all the truth that should be. But let's assume hypothetically you go to court and they say, okay, now churches are open. What capacity do the churches have to make sure they maintain the SOPs?
I think for me, by the way, the place that we are pushing for when we went to the courts of law, we are saying that there should be unconditional opening of places of worship. Now,
so you unconditional, meaning no SOPs?
I think there shouldn't be unfair enforcement of the SOPs like we have seen in the past.
What do you mean unfair?
Let me tell you something. In August 2020, the places of worship were opened with strict conditions of 200 people to be gathering. Obviously, subsequently, there was another closure.
Yes.
Now, we are saying that the first position of government before was that if you say 200 people, you're closing out very many people. And then if you put percentages, because the other conversation around taking a comparative analysis from 20%. Global trends, take 20%, 80%, but how do you determine the 80%, the 20%? We are saying that was irrational in terms of application. Look here, the arcades which you're saying that are open, because I want us, it is saddening to listen to my brother Anderson speaking from, in the most politest language, a place of astounding legal ignorance. Because
I am not a lawyer.
But you see,
no, you don't need to be a lawyer.
I
That's
am
all.
not a
but you see,
lawyer.
Anderson
and,
said,
I am not-
Senyonga.
Just listen up, just because of asked me a question.
Yes.
And I'm saying that you don't need to be a lawyer, and that's why I'm in this place. That's why I'm not discussing security. And I'm telling you that the place of the law does not actually give room for such kind of reasoning, because it is absurd. When you
So
say,
the constitution has to stay running regardless of
you
the
know,
pandemic.
I don't want to take Anderson very far. I want to refer you to the speech of the president of 18th July, 18th June 2020. The last paragraph of the speech, the president says, we are going into a lockdown with a temporary measure. These are temporary measures to preserve what we have worked for as the NRM. And I want to refer you actually to the writings of the president that you keep on passionately defending, and the government that you defend. One of the things about the president, he has always said we shall stand for the rule of law. By the way, why he went to the bush, and
Was
even
for the
beyond the
rule of
bush,
law.
for the rule of law, he would have said that Obote had suspended the rights, but he went with a key justification.
Yes.
But somehow, because of, again, the skewed mentality that we have, where we think everything in life begins from 1986 going forward, we keep on thinking, you see now, in this time, there's always a shift of goalposts, that in this time, the rule of law doesn't have to work. I'm telling you that actually we're not asking for so much.
What are you asking
As a
for?
matter of fact, the Constitution doesn't give me any fundamental rights. Article 20 of the Constitution says my rights are inherent.
Yes.
God is the one who gives me. The Constitution only protects. So for me, the discussion of whether the Constitution or not the Constitution is not a question of what the Constitution gives me.
So
it's a question of my preservation of those rights.
All you
Actually,
need
the-
is
the-
to
the
have
issue-
the churches opened in that regard. But Senyonga, we are dealing with a pandemic here. We're not dealing with normalcy. And I want to pick from what Anderson alluded to. Anderson said that it's a question of life, not rights.
You see, Andrew, I would hope that such a platform like this
Yes.
could really try to expand the debate beyond just mere sentiment.
I
And
understand.
I'm telling you that, and especially scientific sentiment that seeks to impose fear as opposed to actually giving clear justification and clear information for to make objective discussion. No, let me just finish up this. In a pandemic, we are not discussing rights fundamentally, but actually we are discussing logic. Let's discuss the logic now. Let me take you to the place of logic. The president comes and stands and gives 3 reasons as to why he's opening up the economy.
Yes.
And 3 justifications. And he comes and says, actually, we are opening up the arcades. For the arcades, you can go back and work. With very strict observance of particular things. Over the key trading area, go and open up. He comes and tells you borders and public transport, open up. But for the churches, and by the way, I don't need to take you so far about numbers which were allowed. I'll just take you to the 2 simple basics of logic. What is the logical question behind putting churches for 60 days under review? Number 2, why do you then say, if you're to congregate, because the president was seemingly kind, as my brother would want to say it, say, you gather online. Gather online, you know, as was on his eyes, you know, gather online. Gather online, but strictly under 10 people. Now, what is the logic of that? So you're saying our kids can gather without any limitation, borders, public transport, no social distancing. But for the churches, even online, I'm very, very scared of you. You have talked about science.
Yes.
You have talked about logic. Let me give you a simple question. Present to me any statistics that when you go to churches, the virus spreads faster than when you go to an arcade or public transport.
Well, the other thing you alluded to was the unconditional opening of churches.
Yes.
So you're saying equally if places of worship are opened, they shouldn't be tags of SOPs, all that, or even the 20%. It should be, we all go kwa ujumura.
Exactly.
We go back to church.
Yes.
Irregardless of the pandemic.
Yes, you see, in times of crisis, there must
Do you
be
love
that.
Ugandans really?
I love Ugandans. I mean, that's a very, very unfair question you're asking me. Because by the time I go to court, it's because of fundamentally what I believe. So to make it very light like that is very unfair to me. Because you see, we love this nation. And
Because
we
it
love
has
this
killed
nation.
people.
No, you see, the thing is that you keep on, and that's the, and thank God the Ministry of Health later on took progressive stance. Before, at the beginning of the pandemic, they were only telling us one thing. These are the infected cases. These are people who are dying.
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about those people who are healing. In terms of statistics, nobody is telling us how many people are dying of other effects beyond the lockdown. We are saying, look here, churches over the years, over the times, have been key support areas in terms of dealing with some of these pandemics. I was reading yesterday the president's speech was talking about a community engagement plan and system, where they're looking at preventive measures of, you know, spreading the message, dealing with the VHTs, the district local
Parish
governments, you know, up to the parish to make sure this communication goes on.
Yes.
But at the core of dealing with the psychosocial issues is not just the politicians.
Is the churches.
Actually, the churches are the ones who are the key places of addressing some of these issues. But look here, they have been said that, you know, for you, we have locked you up 60 days, 10 people online,
But you
nothing
can, but
should
you
do.
can worship on radio and the TV. They have not stopped you to worship. They have stopped the congregation because government believes that these are super spreaders. And we are in our second wave as a country, and we have seen countries that have had places of worship open, like India, like Germany, like Italy, and how bad it affected. Possibly the government is learning from those and saying, oh, if that was the cause, we are not going to have it here.
No, actually, you see, you are probably you don't follow the permanent secretary quite well. You see, the permanent secretary ahead of the opening up of this lockdown,
Yes.
she came and gave us statistics from the United Kingdom, and you see, I have studied how the United Kingdom has been responding to the pandemic, and he said, look at how the epidemiological curve of the United Kingdom has gone down. They have somehow achieved something scientific called herd immunity out of massive vaccination. But actually, when you go and read the strong stand against the lockdown, you get a document called the Great Barrington Declaration, signed by 40,000 epidemiologists who chose to differ with the dominant narrative of, look here, we must go for strict lockdown. They say two things that you must do. Go for herd immunity through vaccination, go for focus protection through protecting the vulnerable. Now, in Uganda,
Which vaccination we didn't have.
we don't have, but
because it's a pandemic.
the president has been progressive to say, let's go for focus protection of the vulnerables.
Yes.
However, our healthcare system has been having major challenges. Why did I give you that comparison? That even in the United Kingdom, where there has been, you know, where we have tried to refer, don't take nations, because nobody has referred to Germany in Uganda. Everybody keeps throwing around the United Kingdom. I'm telling you what the United Kingdom is
We are
doing.
British protectorate. What do you expect?
And I'm telling you that since we have chosen to swallow the frog, swallow the fattest, go for it. And they have been very progressive in opening up of places of worship. So the thing is that government belief alone does not justify the closing of places of worship. There should be scientific evidence. So you can't simply sit down and guess. You see churches as
But he said my
spreaders.
scientist. He always refers to his scientist.
That's why we are suing his scientists.
Coming back to you, Anderson, when you hear what he says, the Senyonga goes by on, quote, unconditional opening of churches, and he says that over the years, it appears that the leadership of this country, especially the president, the churches and the religions have always been the last doc he actually thinks about.
No, that is actually what my brother lacks is the constitutional interpretation. He knows the constitution, but he cannot interpret it.
How?
And if we are to sort the mess we are in, we are not to look at what saves masses.
One
Because
for the
at
many.
the moment, no one has the capacity to save masses. The only capacity is within the responsibility of an individual to save himself from the masses. And if that is done, the entire community is safe. So on the issue of how to achieve what, and I'm glad he maintains that even United Kingdom closed the churches, and it is now opening churches
Herd immunity.
after. Now here, for him, he doesn't want us to focus on saving the vulnerable. He doesn't even want us to have time to gain the herd immunity, but he wants to unconditionally open churches.
So you gain the herd immunity by keeping people at home
No,
without
but yes, by the way, it is one way, because keeping people at home is, let me give you an example. I want you back to 18th June, when the lockdown was put up. We had about 2,000 daily cases reported, and about 50 deaths per day. By the time we came out of the lockdown, we had less than 400 people who are being admitted, which is a manageable number. And we rarely have even cases of people who are dying. That means that the immunity in itself, the immunity should not be interpreted in terms of body, the strength within the body, but also the strength outside the body. Now, if we are to look at the specifics, churches in specific, the Bible encourages us to congregate, but also spirituality is personal. It is not communal. You get it? To congregate is communal, encourage each other.
Physical.
But you see, there are several mediums of worshiping. There are several platforms of worshiping. There are several ways through which you can understand spirituality and actually grow through it. And of which it is one of those that I want to maybe give my brother.
Okay.
If churches are not open, you can easily pray. You can easily worship through praising. You can easily read the Bible. We listen to different audios. We read, as you read these books, you know, you can equally read different manuals through the Bible. As we go through this, because if Chikubo arcades, some arcades, by the way, even up to now, are not open. Because they have not met the required standards. If you see Chikubo as it is, what makes it Chikubo, it is the uniqueness in it. That is why you don't have so many Chikubo in Kampala. It is a specific, because of the way it is. And if you take away most of these things that make it Chikubo, in a very little time it won't be Chikubo, it was. So it means, if you said, how do we account for the 20% and the 80%? And that is why this account cannot make logic, as you say. That is why it is now review not to open. Why? How do you account for, logically, how do you account for the 20%? So in the meantime, let us not be lied to by this little semblance of COVID that has given us that it has not surged in this 1 month, by the way, which is not even a month after lockdown. Let us not be lied to that. And don't even be convinced, my brother, to think that there is no COVID. And don't think, I don't know, maybe I can ask him in 1 minute. Tell us how COVID is spread.
By advancing irrational arguments such as what you're doing.
No.
Right there, right there, Anderson. I'll take a break. I'll take a break. This is my
One of
show.
the
You're
ways.
going
It's
to,
one of the
gentlemen,
ways.
you're going to listen. We'll take a break for now, but the hashtag is Morning at NTV. I see a lot of your feedback online. Yusuf Nkume says, I agree with Anderson. Actually, Senyonga should be arrested after this show. Let me just remind him of the Prime Minister's advice of those hooligans, so-called pastors, to embrace government income earning programs instead of them thinking of fleecing churchgoers. And another person here says, good morning, Morning at NTV, Nzen Subuga, Senyonga Abimazeko. Keep the messages coming. The hashtag is Morning at NTV. We'll take a break. The Tempest Gali to Dan and we'll be Kampala Serena Conference Center. I'm Andrew Chamagedo. Omuntu Awensi. Someone here is trying to provoke my theology. I won't tap into that. I'll stay journalist as I am here. A couple of you have given us feedback here on Twitter. Dali Salitek says that Mr. Anderson Burora, you should make your research before you come on national television. Herd immunity was the keyword there. Then another person here says that I'm trying to sample feedback. Muchope Amot says arcades pay taxes, which are used to fight the virus. Churches don't pay taxes. Senyonga Wetereze. People's National Movement says prevention is better than cure. Senyonga. Then Sawanyana Titus says, also you've been to downtown ever since the lockdown was lifted. Olabi Echiriyo. Kayiza says, people who portray themselves so wise usually speak the most rubbish. This man, Senyonga, doesn't understand what he's talking about, but rather pushing an agenda. Mwesonyi waked, that people are living, musigarenga musabira. Then Mabeli Ali says, Mabeli, please, let's not be very confrontational with your comments. I'll read those ones that are, civil and to the point here. Nzensuga says, Naya Senyonga, Hachimazeko, going down here just to read one more other person here. Actually, let me just read this one. This one says that I thought these kind of people are in the US, but we have our own in Senyonga. A couple of comments are still coming in. You had a submission to make before we went for the break. The conversation is still getting heated up here and there.
I really find it...
for lack of a better word?
for Senyonga not even to know how COVID is spread. That's the level we are at.
Senyonga gave you a reason.
No, listen. That is the level we are at. And if any Ugandan is looking for who is spreading COVID, here he is. If any Ugandan is been looking for who the false prophets are
of COVID,
here he is. Because people cannot be in tears. Businesses are closing. Children are at home. Some people have not met their relatives for a long time. Some people have spent millions of money to recover dead bodies from hospitals. And someone is here laughing, joking about it, not concerned, not bothered. Nothing. He's like, it's okay. Let people die. Let churches open.
What is your biggest drive to have churches open? Is it something to do with the spiritual maturity that you want people to reconnect back to their gods or something?
Let me just begin by responding just very calmly to my good brother here.
Please.
My elder brother, Anderson. Sad. I have to call him elder. Very sad. You see, the mere fact that you cannot rebut my information does not make me a joker. Because everything I've stated is factual. Nothing I've stated is sentimental. I've presented for you the position of the law, the position of science, the position of politics has been presented. So let's first move away from this whole sentimental thing. Let's ask ourselves the questions. Who is the biggest joker with the people's lives in this country? This nation takes grants of 459 millions from the African Development Bank, World Bank, IMF. That money is looted and stolen. A company called MC Bucks is given money, a contract in 2020 to fix gas cylinders in the 15 referral hospitals in this nation. And the money is taken. You talk about people who are raising up arcades and buildings at the very first rate when people are dying. No one seems to talk about it. You talk about a cash transfer program of Nabanja targeting only 501 and 107 people in the whole nation of 45 million people. Who is the biggest joker in this? Then you talk about people who are talking about opening up of places which are going to be sources of comfort, sources of hope. You call them jokers? Please, cut us some slack. Let me just now respond to this. What is the biggest need of this? And Ugandans out there need to wake up out of their ignorance and stop thinking about this as if we are the perpetrators. Let me tell you, let me just give you some assurance, my good brother Anderson. You see, at the dawn of every new era, there are people who rise up and those who go down. You shouldn't sit there with all this confidence because you're somehow in a privileged position to think that you will always have it all the time. I can assure you this. What this regime, and not, I don't want to say regime, but what some of the members of this regime are doing to come against a force like the church, they will go down with it. I can assure you this.
Senyonga.
And you can mark my words, by the way.
They will go down with
don't
it.
Fear controversy. These are my words.
No.
Don't fear controversy.
Why can't we do remote prayers as we're battling the pandemic?
I am telling you this, that the question of remote prayers is irrational, illogical, and for the lack of better word, stupid.
Why?
Because the fundamental things that even, let me not go very far, from the basic things my brother is talking about. He likes quoting Jesus, and I love Jesus.
So I don't think you do.
I love you very much, actually. That's why I'm going, and that's why you're sleeping and acting like Herod. So you see, Jesus healed. He never said the sick should stay out of the church. You think I can sit down here and I listen to a president telling me that I shouldn't worship my God?
But leaders come from God, and if you believe in Jesus and the president is the ordained leader.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Andrew. Did you read the book of, have you come across your Bible? Probably it's dusty or rusty, but if you come across the Bible in the book of Daniel, are you aware that the leader who signed was appointed by God, who sought to oppress the church?
Of course.
They come from God. So for me, it's not a question of where do you come from. You know, the biggest thing...
Senyonga, you believe the president is up against the dominions of this country?
What's the president? Let me just say it straight in the camera. Which camera am I speaking
That's
to?
your camera.
This one here. Now, Mr. President, together with your scientists who pretend to be Christians around you, you're being misadvised. And I can tell you it's just a matter of months. If you do not stop what you're doing against the places of worship, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that this is going to go, you will go down with this.
The president will go down with this.
The president and the scientists who are pretending to be Christians around him, you will go down with this.
Senyonga.
You don't come against a force. And you know the thing is that some of us speak. I don't speak with, I don't seek any political clout. I'm not seeking for any fame. I'm presenting to you a position which is authentic. I don't feel these things that be sorry. After here, pre-imprisoned him, those guys are saying, imprison me. Come for me.
This is what we're saying. I personally, I don't want you even to be in prison because we have freedom of expression.
I would gladly go to prison for my position. Yes.
But we are looking at a pandemic where the president is giving a leadership role. He's saying, look, we're dealing with a pandemic. Things that are mass spreaders, we're going to pause them for now until when normalcy comes back or when we're sure we have, you know, what we call the firewalls against the pandemic. We have enough vaccination. People have, you know, understood what we're dealing with. There is behavior change.
No one has refused that.
And we can go to that.
Andrew, no one has refused that.
But you're saying unconditional release of churches.
Listen to me, Andrew. I think let us not get lost in translation here. I have presented my position. I have told you. The president comes out with a position together with the epidemiologists. They say, look here, we are going to open up. And I'm telling you that the opening up has been disproportionate. Why don't you address me on the fact that churches have to be, okay, what is the logic behind 60 days? What's the logic what is the logic behind 10 people gathering online? When dance parties on this TV and other stations can gather over 20 people? What's the rationale? Don't go so far. My brother was challenging my constitutional interpretation. That is the position of me as a lawyer. Let me just help you understand. Perhaps you can use this in your mass education when you go back to your people.
I don't think there is anything.
I'm telling you, you may never agree. You don't need to agree, but I need to tell you this as a matter of fact.
Tell you, Chama.
No, I have to tell you because you are the panelists. And I mean, it's a hard truth, my brother. But you know, legal ignorance is no justification for you to come and make massive blunders here. The position of the law is that under Article 29, you are guaranteed a freedom to worship. There are two things about this freedom.
That's true.
Let me make you understand this. There is the right of belief.
As a person.
When I believe, the government has no right whatsoever to question what I believe. But there is the right to manifest. We are going to court to challenge and say that, look here, the government is disproportionately closing out places of worship in manifesting their rights. And we are saying that all these, let me tell you, Anderson here, my good brother.
You realize you're being controversial.
Am I afraid of being controversial? No, I mean, I'm coming against the dominant narrative. So you want me to act?
Which dominant narrative is
the dominant narrative is not forgetting fear, death, and what? Somebody was asking in the comments.
You guy, I was on life support with COVID-19 for 5 days.
Yes,
and it's because I had taken the measures, but because it was a Delta spread and all that, somehow I got infected. I've lost a couple of relatives and all because of COVID-19. So when I hear you saying that we need to open places where, even in Chikubo, when you go downtown, few people are wearing masks or paying attention to the SOPs. But should we just let people just swing along with the vibe and flow with the river because they want to survive and pray and we die?
I like using the president's words. You know, I like quoting him very rightly. He came and said, COVID-19 is a war.
Of course.
Let's take this language of war. What does war come with? Collateral damage.
Of course it does.
At times war is self-imposed, at times it's not.
So in this case,
the war that we are facing is not self-imposed. But in any war, to take the language of the president, there will be collateral damage. The question is, how do we mitigate it? And that's why we want places of worship open. That mitigation comes with you supporting psychosocial needs, you supporting spiritual needs. Actually, if there was anything, if there were any logical scientists around the president, really, they would actually be advancing such a thing.
So you believe there are none? There is none.
I think I don't want to take it. You are a journalist, right?
Yes.
You read the book of the later Professor Anthony Mbonya.
Yes, I
about
did.
the two scientists who are close to the president. That was challenging. Yeah. I know they were very controversial, but
okay, let me just read a couple of tweets here. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Nasinguza Jacob says, just to be clear, isn't this the same guy who said a certain prophet in Uganda is incomparable to be Bill Moses and the like? To that, this man is a landfellow to some people, assuming that indeed is complicated and is going to lose out on the big divide. Then someone here says, Anderson Burora, I know your pain, I feel your pain. This wasn't your kind of desk to talk to people who are not informed and who are praising their illogical thinking. And the tweet here fails to reload again. The tweets, I'm actually reading the ones with the hashtag morning at NTV. We proceed. Another person here says that a very good morning at NTV. I have lost 3 of my closest relatives. Senyonga should be arrested. And my question to Anderson, what are you, those in authority, doing about people like Senyonga?
No, people
spreading
like
this kind of narrative.
People like Senyonga, they are looking for, I don't know if cheap populism is the right word. They are trying to break into the discussion, which is not necessary. Arresting Senyonga is doing a disservice.
To the country? No,
not even to the country, to the fight against COVID.
Okay.
You see in the Bible there are 2 Simon Peters. There is a Simon Peter the witch. Simon Peter the disciple. The witch literally preached the gospel, the false.
Okay.
And when the Bible says that there shall be false prophets, false teachers of the word, you see, Jesus was concentrated on 3 aspects, if not 4. He healed, he fed, he saved. But whoever he saved, he found them where they were. Apart from the 2 or 3 who also struggled to reach him. This means Jesus had the powers to heal everyone in the world.
From
and
their
live
location.
a sick-free world. He didn't. This means Jesus would have saved everyone, including the healthies. He left room for choice for everyone to take their choices. And that is biblical. From the way back. I didn't want to discuss this in a spiritual way because it's not what I had come to do here. But I would have taken my brother through the Bible for him to understand what exactly the Bible is. The Bible and the law are 2 different things.
Give
The
Caesar what
Bible
deserves to Caesar.
saves us by grace, not by law. Don't abuse the church by thinking that you will take people to heaven through the law. We are not saved by law. By law, we are all condemned. By grace, we are forgiven. So take away your bullshit. No,
let's come back. Let's contain the language.
Take away this irrational thinking that you're doing a service to the church by taking the church.
God is proud of me.
Now, I don't know. That is for him.
Just hold on, Senyonga. Let
So
him
what
submit.
I would advise is 1. We all have our effects
As humans.
as humans. We all have things that are discomforting. Don't sit here and tell people that it's you who is missing church more than any of us here. That it's only you and the group that is so disadvantaged. We have just lost Pastor Sinfuma to COVID effects. We have lost so many dear friends. I have lost close relatives. I have lost close friends to COVID. So if you come on national television and you don't want to admit that one of the ways through which we can control the spread of COVID until we achieve the herd immunity scientific aspect is by dispersing, is by scattering everyone to stay where they are. Stay at home. This is a scientific advice, to stay at home, not to gather, to mask, to wash hands. This is basic knowledge. I don't have to have gone to school. Lastly, let's be fair to ourselves. When we are talking to people as leaders, we don't share sentiments. We don't talk about personal interests. We talk about what is in the interest of the public. That is why I am not talking about the Bible, because I am a leader whereby Muslims who are not Christians have to listen to me. So I will not be able to discuss the Quran, the Bible and everything. So I have to remain neutral. I have to respond, I have to respect, I have to talk to everyone. That's why I'm not discussing my beliefs. And that's why I'm not choosing to take that toll. So if we are talking to people and we assume to be leaders, let's be leaders of the people, not our own leaders. We are not leading ourselves.
Okay.
In this, what do I mean? Let us mobilize people to do what is right. Whether they are Christians, whether they are not. The Quran has its own pandemics. The Bible has its own pandemics. And everywhere. And even God is alive to this, by the way. Because it is God is a God who teaches through challenges. When he was healing, I don't know if it was the blind person, I am forgetting the name. They asked him, what did this one do? He said, no, that one happened, so that it is a testimony. So this pandemic, don't take it as if it is a Museveni pandemic. It is through these pandemics where our beliefs are strengthened. It is through these pandemics where our commitment to God comes from, through challenges. So don't think and say that challenges are evil and only good time. You are referring to dance parties. Really? Your inspiration is, you are inspired by dance parties? Instead of advocating that they should stop, you want to follow dance parties? Senyonga.
Okay, let me just have a little bit of the feedback online. We have a God from day one. I think in Kalu something. Your hashtag is so much on your Twitter, so I can't actually read your name. But you say, Anderson Burora, schooling a prophet in Bonye's son on spirituality, law and the grace. Then Nicholas Muhammad says, let nobody scare you, Simon. No one can arrest you. God has much better ground. And another person responds and says, of course, Anderson said it will be a disservice. Then Ronnie Andira says, Sebo Andrew, what Polida Senyonga is falling short of saying is that the churches are being closed out of the money economy. Otherwise, he's a tool or a voice of the dropping levels of cash, not tithe in the church. Let him come clean and not hide behind the church. The other person here is saying that I think I'm done with TV this early morning because this doesn't make sense. I am just recovering from COVID-19, which I got after attending a prayering cell.
Let me just respond first of all to my brother.
As you're finalizing the conversation, gentlemen.
Number one, if you followed me consistently from the beginning of this discussion, I was very keen not to toe the line of differentiating between spiritual beliefs here and there. And I can tell you I'm so confident in myself that I have a good knowledge and understanding of these things. But I chose to stick to the line of the law and to present what actually the place of the law says in terms of the rights. I can just tell the Ugandans out there watching me that you see, human rights that we are pushing for are, number one, inherent. They are God-given. They're not given to you by the state. They support one another. They're interrelated. The destruction of one right leads to the destruction of the other right. So when you touch the freedom of worship, subsequently it will be the freedom of assembly, then your right to life. What many Ugandans don't want to see, and what the state is not telling the Ugandans, is that actually the closure of you from the places of worship, in essence, turns you out to be one who is going to suffer even the grander effects. For me, my biggest concern is the stage that is being set after all this pandemic, as opposed to what is happening. And I want to tie from the lines. So this is not about Senyonga and Anderson. I think the position I'm presenting is way superseding than what he's saying. And I don't know whether I will have a chance to make closing remarks again. Or
Those are the closing remarks.
I would like to tell you this, and without really any fear of contradiction, that the people who are around the president, and the president is not excluded, that continuing to toe the line of refusing to open up the places of worship, specifically the churches, has many precedents of what happened to the leaders who dealt with it, dealt with the church that way or the places of worship that way. And this is no threat at all. I'm only telling you that it's just a matter of months. you will see yourselves going down should you not take away this possession. How then would you want to tell us that you've been faith, you know, believe in faith, believe in God, you hold national prayer breakfast, but even as you hold the national prayer breakfast, all you're propagating is fear, all you're propagating is death. Why are we not restoring the hope? All we are doing is pushing the one narrative. The Senyongas are bad, the Senyongas are wicked, the Senyongas, it's not about the Senyongas, it's about actually our collective responsibility. I like what my brother told me. I loved the
law and the grace?
No. Leave alone that. That was a little. We shall go into that for another time.
We can have a cup of tea on that.
Yes,
okay.
But he told me that our collective responsibility. My brother Anderson, let me take your advice. Collective responsibility means that Ugandans are going to rise up, and they're not going to allow their right to freedom of worship to be trampled. We are in court for this, and no one, I can tell you, no one is going to, you know, throw around all this confusion around us. You know, we are clear on what we are pushing for. Okay. We are clear this is fundamental. And I think all Ugandans should be part of this cause.
Thank you, Senyonga. RSCC, your last remarks?
No, the only thing I can raise to Ugandans is that don't listen to Senyonga and the company. Protect your lives. Cautiously, jealously, personally. Don't even think about any other person. Okay. 2, you can only live once. You have one life. You play with it, we shall find you in heaven or in hell. But the question is when. When do you want to go? If you want to go, follow as early as possible.
Okay.
I wouldn't wish to pray for certain things to happen, but certain people call for certain things to be
I will posit at that.
But I pray that Ugandans listen to collective responsibility. Collective responsibility, as I told you earlier, you don't have now to think whether Chamagero is safe. Let Chamagero take care of himself. Protect yourself.
Thank you.
From that, we shall have another day to hope for. Don't lose hope that if you don't go to church in the next 1 year, you're going to hell. No. Don't lose hope that your spiritual life is going to depreciate because you're not going to church. Read your Bible, pray, praise. Everything will be okay.
Thank you so much. That is the Deputy RCC, Nakawa Division, Anderson Burora, and of course we had Simon Senyonga, who is a lawyer who has sued government for closing up churches. Now I'm joined by my colleague, that is Stephen Mbide, on the ground at Chiswa Vaccination Center. We're still amplifying the issue of gaining more immunity, vaccination, and following the SOPs as guided by the Ministry